Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I want to talk very pointedly about this topic. I know there's a number of creators that do listen to the show, and thank you, by the way, for spending your time with me. I try and get into that nice, relaxing voice that can help draw. You can kind of it's calming, it's soothing. You can draw the pictures of those superheroes killing each other to the melodic sound. No, especially when I'm in the car, I'm sure this actually disrupts quite a bit. So thank you, by the way, for joining. But there's a question that comes up, and I want to acknowledge something from the creator's point of view that I think is really misunderstood in the eyes of the customers and the fans. And here, by the way, I want to be specific around the terms. I'm saying fan as somebody who may like the books, but they're not buying them right now, and customers as people are actually putting their money and buying the books. Those are two different groups. So certainly, customers can be fans, but there's people who just enjoy comics, don't pay for them, and then there's people who do, and I think they're both important to kind of call out. But one of the things that the customers and the fans, there's an expectation that they have to creators. By the way, if you're a creator listening to this and you don't realize this, I promise you, this is an expectation that the creator is going to be kind of de facto marketing for the publisher. You're working on, say, Spider-Man, and you are, in addition to just drawing or writing or whatever you happen to be doing, you're actually responsible for being an evangelist or a cheerleader or a spokesman or woman for, the company. You didn't realize, by the way, Nick Spencer, who I do not think listens to the show, but anyway, Nick Spencer, you are now part of the Marvel marketing department. You're part of their PR arm. You're responsible for helping, set the record straight and put a good foot forward, and basically, if there's a PR mess, you've got to help them get out. Did you realize that was part of your job? I think I'm saying it a bit facetiously, but it is an expectation of the fans that the creators are in that role. And in that instance, I feel like it is often not fair to the creators, and I'll explain why. The creators are largely, and largely to a fault, independent contractors or freelancers. They have no long-term commitment from the publisher whatsoever. And in fact, there's been some very high-profile instances. Robert Kirkman's probably the one that's spoken up the most about it, but even Sina Grace made some comments after this, after he left Marvel, where there was punishment and scolding and reprimands for going out and marketing the books and for doing kind of your own promotion for a Marvel book without running it by the editor. And in many cases, the rules are so stupid, is probably the best way to put it, so loosely defined, so poor, that a lot of creators have no idea what to expect. And you might argue it would be very hard to actually make this stick, but you might argue there's a lawsuit in the wings because some editors don't care, and the creators go off and promote and do whatever they want on social media and other places. They do interviews, they do things, and other editors care a lot and will scold somebody for doing it. And there's no rhyme or reason between the two. There's no clear guidelines. So if you're a creator and you're working very much on a temp basis, very much, you're working at this gig until your next gig, you have no stock, no long-term security, nothing. Why would you want to stick your neck out to promote, market, put a good face forward for the company when you have no idea if even doing so is going to get you reprimanded? It's goofy, and yet there is an expectation from the fans and the customers, in many cases, that the creators are more of the marketing arm than, say, the full-time employees are. You might not realize it, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but there are people who have full-time staff positions with benefits, with everything else, maybe not paid well, but they've got full-time positions with these two companies to do marketing and to do customer outreach and to do PR. There's people who have those jobs. And yet when the conversation comes up around like who's putting the best face forward, they will go after, like I was watching somebody over the weekend attack Ryan Stegman over something that was going on in Venom. And, number one, Stegman's an artist who is a freelancer, who's not officially part of the, not a full-time member of the company. Venom wasn't drawn by him. He had nothing to do with that issue. And like on all fronts, Why is Stegman taking the brunt of the ire of the fans and the customers? Now, two quick caveats I'll throw in here, because you might be thinking, well, but what about? There are two things here. Number one, of course, and I say this as common sense, it goes without saying that creators should be invested in putting their best foot forward with a company and with their project. They should be doing that on their own, because out of, if not because they're just, a good person who's trying to do right by the company paying them, it's in their best interest. If they have a better selling book, if they're known as being somebody who helps bring new fans, new customers to a title, that should be rewarded. Companies would reward them, and they'll be rewarded in future work. If you're an editor looking to bring somebody on for a new title, are you gonna pay for this kind of unknown person over here? Are you gonna pay for this person who works very, very hard to promote the books they're on and tries to generate fan interest and other things? I mean, it's in your best interest to put your best foot forward and market and everything else. I think that is very true. And I also think there are social media guidelines and other things that say don't go out and be a lunatic on social media and these other places, because you want to, you want to do a good job by the title you're on. You want to try and, again, put the best foot forward with what you're doing. That makes sense too. Uh, but it's the expectation. And I think this is what causes a decent amount of problems in comics. It's this expectation fans and customers have that the creators are going to be the first line of defense for any marketing or PR problems. And on top of that, it's this weird kind of double standard expectation that the publishers have for that. I've heard publishers talk out of both sides of their mouth of, we want all marketing activities run by the official channels of the company, and many people don't even know what those official channels are. And simultaneously, we expect creators to go out there and generate interest for the books they're on. Oh, are you paying them for that? No. Oh, if the book sells more, do they get a bonus or some addition to their salaries? No. It's like, okay, well then I hope they do it, because that's just being a good person and that's helping the industry. And yes, I do believe it'll pay it forward to some future where you have a better name, a better reputation, better thing, all the rest. Good for you. But it is an unreasonable expectation, I think, that you're basically going to say, hey, these creators who we have no long-term or even medium-term commitment to, we want them to basically be our free marketing department. I do think that's dodgy as hell. And I think that there's a lot of misplaced frustration that goes on, where the creators are getting slammed for the company doing stupid things when there's a whole legion of faceless people, and that's part of the problem, quite frankly, whose job it is to do to do good work there, and they don't do it. They basically outsource that responsibility to creators who, on any given day, may or may not do this stuff. And by the way, I'll throw in this as well, is many of the creators who are kind of asked to do this, I already mentioned that there's no guidelines of what you can and can't say. There's no clear anything given about how to market stuff. There's also not even basic social media or public speaking training given to some of these people. I mean, a lot of if you're basically, your career was, you went to high school, you took maybe a year of college art classes, you worked in a comic store, you got a gig writing for CBR, and then 2 years later you're working for Marvel. You don't have a lot of good public speaking training. No one's taught you anything. It has. Do you think that maybe these big corporations should spring for a social media class? I mean, maybe, you think, or just hey, if you do an interview, and we're all locked here at home, but hey, you're a comic creator, so you're always locked at home, and somebody's doing a Zoom call with you. I mean, here's some tips. Put some good lighting in the room. Point the camera slightly down so you don't have that extra chin showing from the the belly button skyward shot of the camera. Hey, maybe in your background there, put some fun comic stuff or something, as opposed to like a laundry basket with some panties hanging out the side of it. I mean, that just basic things, little simple tricks. And granted, I'm doing this video recording from the car with a Bluetooth headset, so I'm the last person to give guidance on how to get good audio out of your product. But still, maybe your laptop or whatever else you're doing for your interview don't have that microphone 12 feet across the room. uh, I don't know, with a cable that you bought during the Windows 95 era. I'm just, there's some basic things. And then when you're doing your interview, maybe don't use words like the N word. Maybe don't throw that out there. Maybe don't just like, maybe don't throw maybe don't say certain things. Maybe, when you're doing your speech, don't talk about how there's so many cringy things. When there's this virtual Comic Con, the last couple, like there's always somebody on the panel who clearly has not gotten the memo about things that they absolutely should not say in public, let alone on a call that in theory thousands of people are going to watch. I don't know. My point here is this. I think there's this expectation. I don't think, I know there's an expectation from a lot of fans and customers that the creators are going to be the marketing department for the company. And I think in this case, I side more with the creators. I think that's an unfair expectation. I do think it's a reasonable expectation that the creators should be professional and buttoned up and not act like kind of raging jackasses on social media. I absolutely think that's true. But I do think that there's an obligation the company has, the publisher, to doing marketing, to evangelizing for the company. I think it's patently unfair if you're beating up on Ryan Stegman for a comic he wasn't even in just because he does work for Marvel. I think if you're pissed about the X universe of comics, I think crapping on Donny Cates or Jason Aaron is a mistake. Yes, they work for Marvel. It doesn't mean that they are spokesmen for everything Marvel does. I think that there's somebody who has that job, and I think that person needs a good kick in the ass, quite frankly. But otherwise, I think that I think always, yes, creators should put the best foot forward. I think they should try and be professional. I think they should try and be encouraging and welcoming into industry. I think they should do that for their own self-interest. But I think there's this gap where the publishers are getting off somewhat scot-free, not doing a pretty significant job that they should be doing, and for whatever reason, they get kind of ignored. Whereas the creators take the brunt of a lot of nonsense. My opinion, anyway. What's yours? So leave a comment below. Who do you believe has the responsibility of marketing the company? If DC's, for example, has all these firings and there's chaos and there's all these bleeding cool articles written about how everything's a mess and Jason Fabok's upset and all the rest. Who at DC is it? Scott Snyder? Is it Becky Cloonan? Who at DC is supposed to respond to this stuff? Is it Jim Lee? I think it's Jim Lee. Is it Marie Javin? Yeah. Is it Daniel Cherry? Yes. I'm saying yes to all those people. Is it G. Willow Wilson? No. Is she even still working for DC? I'm not quite sure anymore. Who's responsible for what? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Follow me on social media, where I promise I'm not that much of a jerk. And thanks for listening.